Welcome into Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's program, got a little overreaction Monday after a absolutely crushing 32-27 loss to our AFC South foe, the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, almost 24 hours out, have a little bit more clear mind, but I just wanted to break down some of the top stories, some of the top things we must discuss going into this week up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And one of the first things I need to talk about on today's show is the absolute blasphemy that I've seen online from some Texans fans. And this is very few Texans fans. I think the overall unit of Texans fans are still behind this guy right here, behind CJ Stroud. But I did see some people saying, maybe we want Watson back. Maybe Stroud isn't the guy. I think it was a flash in the pan for this guy. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. I want to know right now, are you in or are you out? Like the video if you still believe in CJ Stroud. If not, defend yourself. Tell me why in the comment section that we shouldn't believe in CJ Stroud, because I'll tell you right now, I am 100%. Make that more. I'm 1,000% in on CJ Stroud still being the guy for the Houston Texans. And I don't care what any of y'all are saying to defend otherwise, because he's struggling. There's no doubt about it. Yesterday might have been one of his worst games as a Houston Texan. But if you're already out on this kid, if you already are ready to move on from him, you were never in. You were never in on CJ Stroud, and nothing he could do short of winning a Super Bowl would convince you otherwise. So I'm not even worth having this discussion with you if you're already out on CJ Stroud going into year two after what he's done for this program, what he's done for the city of Houston, what he's done for the franchise, what he's done for this team. If you're already out on him, bye. Because at that point, you were never really in on this team or in on CJ Stroud. Now, these are the three topics I'm ready to discuss on today's program. The offensive line, there has to be a change. There must be a change this week. Coaches need to be held accountable, and the Texans season, is it cooked? This is how I kind of judge all these stories on the show. If you're a first-time viewer, I use my Toro heads meter. If I give it 0 heads or fake news, obviously no chance. 1 head, kind of 25% people are talking small shred of truth. 2 heads, 50%. 3 heads, 75. 4 heads, so on and so forth. So that's kind of just for the new people if you don't know what the Toro heads mean. So let's get into our first story on today's show. The offensive line has to be changed. An O-line change must be made this week. 4 Toro heads believe it. You have to. You have to make a change. You have to move on from somebody, make something happen, because it's been week after week after week, and we've been giving chance after chance after chance. We've been saying, oh, well, they just need to grow into their role. Oh, well, they just need a chance to gel together. Oh, well, it's not necessarily the offensive line's fault. It's a scheme problem. I'm not buying it anymore. You need to make a change, and it needs to happen this week. The Texans' offensive line this year, pressure percentage allowed, and yeah, 3rd, 4th, and 1st, these are bad stats. You don't want to be top 5 in these stats. Pressure percentage allowed this season, 3rd in the entire NFL on the amount of pressure that they have allowed to CJ Stroud. Sacks allowed, 4th. And total overall quarterback pressures, they are number 1, the worst offensive line in the National Football League. We have a bottom 5 O-line. And it doesn't seem like anybody on the Texans coaching staff gives a rat's ass. If you want to see even more about how bad this offensive line has been, my guy VT on X, he does some good content over there as well. He had this to say about Shaq Mason. He's never given up more than 32 pressures and 4 sacks in a season. Last year in the same scheme, he gave up 32 pressures and 3 sacks. This year, already, and we still have 5 games to go, already, he's given up 31 pressures and 7 sacks. And that's without having 300 less snaps than last year. Shaq Mason's been terrible. He's been terrible this year. He's played awful. Obviously, the worst year of his NFL career. And don't get me wrong, whenever the Texans traded for Shaq Mason the past couple seasons, he's played well for Houston. He's been one of the better offensive linemen for this team. But this year has been an overall letdown for Shaq Mason. On the field, I don't know if it's just his time has come. He's starting to get cooked. Maybe, Father Time is undefeated. I don't know if that's the case with Shaq Mason, but he has been awful this season and easily his worst year as a Texans offensive lineman. Scruggs, former second-round pick. We wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. Last year, rookie season, only played in a handful of games at guard and was not good. This season, according to PFF, all these stats per PFF, pressures allowed 19, hurries 11, sacks allowed 5, and penalties 6. Scruggs has not been it. He has been bad at guard and at center for this Texans team. I think these two guards, you can't play them both. You got to choose one of them to sit. And I don't know if that's Scruggs or Shaq Mason, but both of those guys, you cannot continue to roll out this offensive line with those two guys starting at the 2 guard spots. The Texans rank in the bottom 10 in the NFL in run block win rate and pass block win rate, which means it's maybe a scheme thing, but also they're just losing one-on-one battles across the offensive line. They're getting beat by the guy who's getting set up across for them consistently this year at every position, from left tackle to right tackle. The Texans' offensive line has failed this team. They have failed me and you. They have failed CJ Stroud this season. And like I said, I don't know if it's Scruggs. I don't know if it's Shaq Mason. You can't start both of them going into this next week up against the Jags. You got to make a change. And I want to know from you right now, how many Texans offensive linemen do you want back next season? I showed you the starting 5 as it is right now. How many? Is it 1, 2, 3, 4? Do you want 5 back? I don't see how there's any way you can think that. Let me know down in the comment section. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's video. So if you get hit with the YouTube ad break, perfect timing. Scroll on down and let me know. Legitimately, how many of these offensive linemen do you want back next season? This is me being generous. Honestly, I only feel semi-comfortable with 3 of them. And I don't even know if that's the case because Jeremy Chuggs, besides the penalties, has played decent this year. Jarrett Patterson, I think, has been okay. And Titus Howard, it's been a roller coaster for him, to say the least. So I don't know if you can change all offensive linemen going into this next year. But honestly, both guard spots should be a wide open battle this offseason for the Houston Texans. Or they need to draft, they need to sign somebody. Something needs to change along this offensive line. Maybe 3 spots need to change along this Texans front. Coming up next, coaches need to be held accountable. And I'm not just talking about Bobby Slowik. I'm talking about this whole coaching staff. I'll give you my answer to that in just a moment. But before I get into that, I got to tell you about today's sponsor, PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app out there with over 5 million active members. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. Not only football, they have basketball, they have hockey, they have MMA. Whatever sport tickles your fancy, they got you covered over at PrizePicks. And it's easy as this. You choose 2 or more players from any sport, and you can mix and match. Choose more or less on their projected stat types and place your entry. It is truly that easy. You can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. And they actually have an amazing special for Thanksgiving. Tyreek Hill, they made it 0.5 receiving yards. I mean, 1 yard equals 1 win with Tyreek Hill this week, thanks to PrizePicks. Get in on the daily action and win some money, honey. And they're giving you a free one with this one, right? Tyreek Hill, 0.5 receiving yards. I mean, come on. This is too good of a deal to pass up. So get started today with America's #1 daily fantasy sports app in PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So get started today with PrizePicks. Run your game. The coaches need to be held accountable for the Houston Texans. That's 4 Toro heads. You believe it. And it's not just Bobby Slowik, which we'll get to him. Don't you worry about it. But there were so many dumb mistakes made against the Titans on Sunday. And it was just, from top to bottom, this entire team, this entire unit, the coaching staff, the players, it looked like after that first touchdown, they thought the game was over. They thought it was a 2-minute game after CJ Stroud threw that touchdown to Cade Stover. That was it. Good game, guys. Everybody, time to pack it up. That's what it seemed like for the Houston Texans yesterday up against the Tennessee Titans. And there were some stupid decisions made. I mean, 4th and 1. You have CJ Stroud and the guys out there, and they're all looking to the sideline saying, what are we going to do? And I look over, the camera pans to DeMeco and Bobby, and they have their hands in their pockets. Look like they have no clue what decision to make. You can't do that. You got to be on top of the ball. You got to be ready to make tough decisions in the game at a split second. And at that point, you failed your team, DeMeco Ryans, and you failed your team, Bobby Slowik, by not having any semblance of a plan on what to do. You end up having a delay of game. If you're going to have a delay of game like that, why do you not just leave the offense out there and try to get them to jump? That made no sense. Every NFL team does it. Hell, every high school team does it. Every college team does it. You fake like you're going to go for it. Even if you're not, why stroll out your punting unit with 13 seconds left on the play clock and just take the delay of game? Absolutely idiotic. Running up the middle on 3rd and 1 when this offensive line was getting abused by the Titans defensive tackles, T'Vondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons. We just talked about it at the top of the show. Juice Scruggs and Shaq Mason were getting worked. Jarrett Patterson didn't have any help, and he wasn't really doing a ton either on the inside. 3rd and short, and you're like, you know what, let's just run it up the middle with Joe Mixon. And then at the very end of the game, you have a safety coming from a time. I mean, you played awful. Kaimi missed a gimme field goal to tie it up. You also had a penalty on a touchdown that would have been a go-ahead touchdown at the end of the game with Nico Collins with an illegal shift. And you have a chance, even with all that, your defense gives you a chance to win at the end of the game. You get a sack to bring you to the 1-yard line. You call a timeout, and off of a timeout, it's a safety. I mean, come on. And then this is the response by DeMeco after the safety. I mean, this was all of us. And DeMeco, I'm sorry. I still love you. You're our guy. But the lack of awareness and experience is becoming more and more evident each and every single week, DeMeco. And this coaching staff, plain and simple, they need to be better. They need to be more prepared. It seems like the guys weren't prepared. It seems like the guys were ready to pack it up after that first touchdown. And where's that fight? Where's that fire? Where's that mentality? Where's the swarm mentality that you preach each and every single day? That relentless mindset. Because it wasn't there yesterday from anybody on the Texans sideline. Not a single coach, not a player. I mean, the only guys that I can think of that had that mentality, maybe Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. Because the Texans defense had 8 sacks yesterday. Texans secondary played bad. Texans offense played awful in the second half. Nobody had that swarm mentality. Nobody had that mindset to go after it relentlessly every single down, every single play. And that's including the coaching staff, DeMeco. So we need to take a long, hard look in the mirror and say, is this who we are? Or do we have that swarm mindset? Or is that just something to sell more t-shirts to Houston fans? Really, that's something that we need to ask ourselves if we're in the Texans locker room. Every single coach and every single player. Lastly, the Texans season isn't cooked. No, it's not cooked. This was an awful loss. This was embarrassing. This was an eye-opener. But the Texans season is not cooked. Come on, guys. We still have a good hold on the AFC South. Our destiny is in our hands. And once you make it to the playoffs, anything is possible. This loss stings. And I'm being honest. Texans don't look like a top 10 NFL team as of right now. They don't. They don't. They don't look like a top 10 offensive team. Surely, the defense I thought was top 3, but coming into this game, you make Will Levis look like a Pro Bowler. They had a bad game as well. But everything changes once you get to the playoffs. And these final 5 games for the Texans is going to be everything I need to know about the Texans before they possibly make the playoffs. Or if they don't, showing what you need to do this offseason. Because you have a chance up against another AFC South foe in the Jaguars, which news coming out today, Trevor Lawrence is practicing, might be able to return this week up against the Texans. And then you have this gauntlet right here. 3 games in 10 days. This is going to tell me everything I need to know about the Texans and my expectations of them going into the playoffs. Because if they lay 3 duds, they lay 5 duds here, one, you might not even make the playoffs. I mean, you won't make the playoffs if you lose your next 5 games if you're the Houston Texans. It's going to be the Colts who win the division, and you would have had one of the biggest slip-ups in franchise history on an easy path to make the playoffs and win the division as the AFC South champions if you're the Houston Texans. But if you don't show me that fight, you don't show me that contention, especially in these 3 games here against teams that you could very well face in the playoffs, that's going to tell me everything I need to know about this Texans team and my thoughts going into this offseason around this Texans franchise. That's all I have for you in today's show, folks. Hit me up on Twitter at Jeremy Chuggs for more Texans news and rumors all year long. And make sure, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We passed 21,000 subscribers. We're on our way to 22,000. We are the fastest growing Texans channel on YouTube for good reason. We bring you daily content for free, weekly live shows. You will find nobody more dedicated to this team on YouTube than myself. I am bringing you content all year long. So don't miss a minute of it. Go down, hit that subscribe button for free Texans content 24/7.